Today I'm going to show you how to make an infographic using Google Slides. I'm going to be doing a few things to help you make your infographic look really nice. That can be used for any type of poster, not just an infographic, but that's what I'll be using right now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to slides.new, which will start up a new slide for me. If you want, you can go in through your Google Drive, but I just prefer, if I'm ever starting a blank slide, I go to slides.new. As long as I'm signed into my browser, it will allow me to start that. What I'm going to do first is I am going to title it. I'm going to call this infographic sample. And next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change the size of my slide. So although slides is usually used for a presentation, today I'm going to be using it just to create one slide that will be one big picture. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to File, and then I'm going to go down to the bottom where it says Page Setup, and I'm going to click that. Right now it's set to widescreen 16:9 ratio. We're going to click on that, and then we're going to go to Custom. Next, I'm going to change the setup of my page to reflect the type of paper that I'm using. So for example, if I wanted to use a typical sheet of paper, that would be an 8.5 by 11 inch size. A legal is 11 by 14, and the other one, I can't remember what it's ledger right now. It will be 17 by 11 or 11 by 17, depending on how you put those dimensions in. It will change it. So if you want it to be a little bit taller and you want to be in portrait mode, you do 11 by 17. If you want it to be horizontal or landscape mode, you do 17 by 11. I tend to prefer to do 11 by 17 because I like it to have the portrait format. And I'm going to hit apply. As you can see, it has changed what my slide looks like, and now it looks more vertical. I'm going to select all the things on my box or on my slide, and then I'm going to delete them. So now I have a blank screen, and I can start putting together my infographic or my poster. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to background. There are some options in here that you can use to change the background. You can go with a solid color, but there's some gradient options in here as well that you may want to take a look at. So if you click on gradient, you can choose a preset gradient. So maybe have it a little bit brighter in the middle and going to darker color in the on the corners. You can also create your own gradient. So if I go down to custom here, I can click on custom, and then I can change the type of my gradient. So let's say, let's change it to a linear gradient, and we'll do make it look like that. And then we can just add gradient stuff. So if I want it to look really horrible, I could do a sort of white or light orange, green, dark orange. You can do all sorts of stuff. You can add more stops to it and change how that gradient looks. So although this one doesn't look very nice, it is an option that you can do. And perhaps, given the topic of your infographic, it might be something worth looking into. For now, I am just going to click this very neutral sort of white in the middle and gray on the sides, and I'm going to click Done. Now that I've got my background, it's time for a title. So what I'm going to do is I'm going up to my Insert menu, and then I'm going to go to Word Art. So for my infographic, I'm going to give it the clever title, Infographics! Exclamation mark, and then I'll hit enter. If you want your title to have more than one line, you can hold, I believe, Control Enter. Let me just double check on that. So if you go Insert, Word Art, Shift Enter, my mistake. So that's how you can do multiple lines, because once you hit enter, it will put the word art into your document. The Arial font is not the most eye-catching one, so we can actually change our font here of our title, and I'm going to switch it to Luckiest Guy to give it a kind of fun look. You'll notice that as I move things, I've got a red guideline here that will show me exactly, the exact center point. If I want it in the middle of the page, as I go down, I'll get a horizontal one as well. One neat little trick that you can do is if you find yourself like having things off center, or you find it difficult to arrange things just so, if you hold shift when you move things, I'm holding shift right now, and you'll notice that it's only going It's only going completely vertically or completely horizontally. It won't go off to the sides like this. It sort of locks it onto one plane, for lack of a better word. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it at the center like I wanted it to be. And then I'm going to click on this format options. This is a nice little tool that will allow you to really step up how your infographic looks. When I click on format options, I get a sidebar here with a few options. So we'll just take a few moments to go through them. First is size and rotation. You can just change the size of it. If you want it to not look stretched when you are resizing it, you can click on lock the aspect ratio, and that way it will prevent it from looking stretched. You can also flip it if you wanted a mirror image for some reason. For example, if you're doing a geometry assignment. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go away from this one. Next, I'll go to position. This just helps you arrange things at an absolute location. I can also go to this one, which is one of my favorite things, which is the drop shadow. You'll notice that when I turn it on and off, the lines around the lines around my title get a little bit darker. And if I zoom in, you can have a better look at what that looks like. So drop shadow adds a shadow to your text or object. It has a really nice effect. What I usually do is I bring it down to about 30% transparency, so a little bit dark. And then I bring my blur radius up to about 7 or 8. Some people like to put the distance, play around with the distance. I personally, don't like to go too much further than 7. So now when we zoom back out, here's what we see. So we've got that nice title where it's very visible, and you can see the little touch that drop shadow has added to our text. If I toggle it off, you can see the difference there. Next, let's take a look at some of our tools that we can use to make some shapes in our infographic. I'm going to go to the shape menu right here, and we have a drop down of all the different shapes that we can use. One helpful tip that some people are surprised to know about is you've got the rectangle tool, you've got the oval tool. And again, we have this situation where you might be trying to eyeball it and get it close to a circle. If you just hold that shift key while you're sizing it, it will force your shape to be, for example, a circle if you're in the oval mode. If you're in a polygon, it will force it to be a regular polygon. So for example, if you choose the pentagon rather than having like a squashed or a stretched one, if you hold that shift, it will become a regular pentagon. So this is a great tool for our math teachers as well. If you're trying to get some of those shapes for geometry, holding that shift key will allow you to do that and make it a bit more exact. For a rectangle or rounded rectangle, you'll get a square or a rounded square respectively. So there's lots of cool little tricks you can do. I love that shift key. Just dipping over to the line tool for a quick second. If you hold shift while you're doing the line tool, it will actually lock your rotation to 15-degree increments. So that will make it easier for you to, for example, make a perfectly vertical line or a perfectly horizontal or exactly 45 degrees or what have you. So holding that shift key can offer you a lot of options. So I'm going to go back into my shapes and I might put in a rounded rectangle and this is where I might want to put some text. So I've got my rounded rectangle. You'll notice as I zoom in here, when I select my rounded rectangle, I do have this orange diamond on there. If you change that, what it'll do is it'll change how rounded the corners are. So we can make them either more or less round depending on how you might want to do it. So let's just pull it over like that. With your shapes, you also have access to the fill color. So let's go ahead and make this red, nice bright red. Now, another tool that is available, but it's kind of hidden beneath the window in the menu is transparency. So if you wanted to, for example, have a transparency effect on your shape, for example, you wanted to see through the circle a little bit. If I go to the fill color menu, but I go down to custom, what I can do is I can hit this plus. I can find the color I want. So I'll find, let's just make it like a bluish one. And then right here, I've got a transparency slider. So I can actually slide that around, 40% or 50%, hit OK. And now, as you can see, I can see through that circle, which gives me different options. That just might be an effect that you're looking for. I'm just going to go ahead and delete that. And I really don't like that red color either. I'm going to change that to something a little bit more less in your face. Maybe this nice cornflower blue, I think it is. So we've got our blue here. You can also fill it with a gradient. So if I do that, I can choose from these gradients that they have preset. And once again, I can go to custom and choose a custom gradient if that's my inclination. So I'll just take this one. I might want to give this box a nice border. So what I'll do is I'm going to choose a white border just because I just think it might look nice. And I'll make the border a little bit wide. So I'll make it an 8 pixel wide border. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add an image to my infographic. If I have an image on my computer, I'm able to upload it from my computer. I can also search the web. And I can also get one from my drive, or I can even take a picture with my camera. What I'm going to do right now, though, is I'm going to search the web, and let's just find a picture of a dog. So let's look for a puppy. And this is adorable, so I'm going to choose it. So it brings up this search window to the side, and it will basically use a search for Creative Commons licensed images that you can put into your presentation. So when I put this in here, you'll notice that I'm kind of limited to whatever the the original photo looks like. Now, on the plus side, this does have a white border, which is going along with my theme that I have going right now. But on the downside, it's in a rectangular format, and I just don't think that's the most engaging or visually pleasing option. So what I'm going to do is, with this object selected, I am going to go up to my crop image window. And when you do that, you can crop it to a variety of things. So if I do, for example, this, it will crop the shape to that. And I'll hit undo. I can also crop to, for example, a heart shape because it is adorable. And then there's our little puppy cropped to the heart shape. I just realized that the reason it had a white border is because it came in like that. Now, you might be thinking, okay, this heart is really wide. Let's resize it. But when we do that, what will happen is you will squash the poor puppy in that picture. So what we want to do is we want to basically work with the cropping tool to make it easy to crop to the shape we want. So if I want to crop to a circle or any sort of regular shape, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make my cropping window as close as possible to a square. Other tools like PowerPoint will allow you to choose the aspect ratio, but unfortunately with Google Slides, you do have to kind of eyeball it a bit. I'm going to resize it, get the puppy's head right where I want it right here. And then with that in as close to a square as I can get, I'm going to go now to my drop-down menu. I'm going to go to Shapes, and I'm going to choose my oval. And lo and behold, it will crop it to a circle. So now I just turn off my crop tool, and now I have a lovely circular image that I can now put alongside this container that's going to hold my text box in a few moments. And I can even do this. I can take both of these objects. I can draw a box around both of them. And then I can go to my Arrange window, and I'm going to group them together. So now, rather than two objects, they are now one object, and I can move both of them at the same time. This will help me arrange things later. So if you have things that you want to keep together, you may want to choose to group them. Let's click on this, and we'll go to Format Options. I'm going to go to Drop Shadow, and I'm going to give it about the same sort of options as I had before. I'll put my blur radius up to 7 or 8, and I'll bring my distance up to maybe 7. I might bring my blur radius actually to 10. And so now we have this lovely kind of shadow around our shape, and it just looks like, to me, it looks pretty good. So now I might want to put some text in there. So I'm going to bring up my text box, and I'm going to draw my text box within there. You'll notice it gives me a little sizing indicator to say that it's the same sort of height as my infographics up above. And now I can put in my text. So I'm going to choose not the same font as my original thing up there, or as my title, because I don't want to conflict with the title I'm using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to size my font up to maybe, let's say 24, and let's make it white. So I'm going to go to my A with the underline text color. I'm going to choose white. Note down here that you could also do a transparency effect there if you were so inclined. So I'm going to click on white, and away we go. So now I can say puppies are adorable! Exclamation mark. You can center that text. You can turn it into a link if you want. If this infographic was meant to be used solely digitally, you could put it as a link. Let's center it, and then we can vertically center it as well. So I'll put that right in the middle. And you know what? Let's put the font up because we don't have a lot of text there. So let's take up as much space as we can. And then what I'll do now is, now I've got my fonts, or sorry, my text selected. And what I'll do now is I'll go back to my old friend format options, and I'm going to, put on that drop shadow because I love it. So I'm going to put that on there and bring up my blur radius and put in my distance like that. And so now our font pops out of that a little bit more, and it's set apart from the background. Again, now that we have a text box in there, you may choose to group it all again. So I'm just going to group it just to make sure that the text box is part of the group. And now I can move this around the page. Another thing our friend the Shift key will allow you to do is when you are rotating an object, if you rotate it without it, it just sort of goes, free form. But if you hold the Shift key, it will again lock it to 15-degree increments, which gives you a little bit more control about over how it's being arranged on your background. Through the magic of video, I have now put 2 more pictures onto my slide, onto my infographic, and I'm going to show you a couple other tools. So with your line, we took a look at it briefly before. You can actually make an arrow. So if you wanted to pull an arrow pointing to one different section of your infographic to another, you can absolutely do that. You can change the arrowhead. You can change how it ends and how it begins. All sorts of options there. You'll notice that as I drew that arrow, some dots came up, and those are just to help you arrange. So if I hover over my original picture, I can draw straight from the center of that one to the center of the one below it. If I put another arrow in here, I'll start there, and we can do the same thing there. So you can change the weight of those arrows, of course, and the color. So maybe you want them black instead of that sort of charcoal. And so we bring it up to 4 point, and it can look like that. So again, these are just tools that help you arrange the elements of your infographic. Another neat option for using a line is if you're trying to guide your viewers' eye through a certain path on your infographic. So for something like that, I might choose a scribble. So I might do a little scribble, and if you had a Chromebook with a touch screen, it'd be a lot easier. I'm doing this with a mouse. So maybe I want people to go to this one and then sort of meander, do a little dipsy doodle here, and go to this puppy right here. So that looks horrible because I used the mouse. But if you're using your finger on a touch screen, it would look a lot better. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to size this up to maybe a 12-point font, and I'll make it black. Now I might want to do a dotted line, so I can bring up this dash or dot, and now it will create almost like in the old Family Circus cartoons, sort of the kid walking around, shows the path of the kid walking around. You could also do like a dash like that, and it will kind of guide the viewer's eyes through it. But you'll notice that these lines are really distracting, especially because they go through my pictures. That's because slides works in layers. So this is the topmost layer, and it's going to be sitting on top of different things. There are ways to change that though. So if I right click on this element right here, this picture of this dog, I can go to order and I could choose bring to front. So now you'll notice, I'll undo that just so you can see, here we've got the black bar here, and when I bring it to the front, that black bar goes away. So it's actually beneath it. So if I were to move it, you'd see it, and I can just reposition anywhere like that. And another thing you can do is, rather than bring every element in front of the line you just created, what you can do is send the line backward. So what I'm going to do is I right click on the line, I can go to order, and then I can send backward. And now it's beneath this puppy. The last way of doing it, and this is actually a lot easier, I find, is there's a keyboard shortcut. So when I highlight order, I can either bring it forward, bring it to the front, send backward, or send to the back. You'll notice that there's a keyboard shortcut. On a PC, it's going to be Control and the down arrow. I happen to be on a Mac right now, so I can choose the Option key Command and down arrow. So if I hold Command and down arrow, again, this would just be the exact same on a PC, except it would be Control. But you'll notice that I can bring it up and down at will just by using that keystroke. And I find that that gives you a bit more control, and it's less clicking around trying to do stuff. So that is the scribble tool. You may also want to make a shape that doesn't exist in this menu. So we have all sorts of cool shapes in here: arrows, callouts, equations, things like that. But maybe you just want sort of an abstract, organic looking shape. If I choose my curve tool, I can actually create one. So the way the curve tool works is I click, 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 and you'll notice that as I move my mouse around, it changes that curve. So it just sort of calculates how sharp that turn needs to be, basically. So I'm just going to go around, make this nice little sort of freeform shape, and we'll just do like this a little bit more. And then you'll notice that as I bring it close back to the beginning, it snaps to create a shape. So I can actually click on that, and then now I have this funky looking shape. I can again fill it up with a color. I can make it transparent, see-through. I can do all sorts of things with that shape now that I've just created by using the curve tool. So again, you just go to curve, and then you click, 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 and there is this shape that I've created. Really simple, and can add a nice little touch to your infographics. Similar to the curve is the polyline, except it is straight. So rather than having curves, these will just give it just normal vertices. So you can make any shape like this, and when you get close to the beginning, it will snap it, and then you have a sharper looking shape using actual angles. So that is the line tool, and there's a couple we didn't go into. We didn't really talk about the curve connectors. To be honest, I don't really use them very much, but you can, I believe you can just drag them to the different spots. And so if I want to curve and connect it to there, I can change this little orange thing to make that line give it more of a smooth curve, if you will. So that may also be an option that you're looking into. So that was how you can use slides to create an infographic or a poster. Obviously, when yours is done, it will have more than 3 images on there and quite a bit more text. Remember, the whole idea of an infographic is to share information in an interesting and visually engaging way. That includes facts and figures and visual elements to help guide your reader to an understanding of your topic. Good luck with it, and take care.